Hey, so the Cowboys, man, they really, really took it to the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings were definitely one of the hottest teams in the league. Cowboys, you know, fought, they beat them 40-3. One of the worst defeats of this year. I think it was the best. I think someone said it was the best, the most lopsided margin that the Cowboys had on the road. So how should we look at the Cowboys now? Are they the Super Bowl favorites now that they put that type of game together to beat the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, it was definitely a dominant performance. I'm not quite sure that we should make the Cowboys the Super Bowl favorite. It all depends on what Cowboys team shows up. If that Cowboys team that beat the Minnesota Vikings shows up and they play like that every game, the Cowboys can beat anybody in the league. I look at some of the other games they played. In the game versus the Vikings, Dak Prescott played a very good game. He was 22 of 25 for 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The running game was effective. Pollard, I believe he had over 100 yards rushing and 100 yards receiving. The defense played great. They almost reached double-digit sacks. I mean, they just dominated. They were basically in the backfield with Kirk Cousins. I look at some of the other wins they've had. They won 23-16 over the Giants, which the Giants is one of the hot teams. They beat the Lions 24-6, which the Lions just beat the Giants. They beat the Bears 49-29. And, we saw the Bears battle the Miami Dolphins in a very, very back-and-forth game, a close game that came down to the wire. And then most recently, like I said, they beat the Vikings 40-3. So the Cowboys, let's go back to this Bears game they played. In that Bears game, they had nearly 500 yards of offense. They passed for over around 225 and they ran for 200. They only had 57 plays. So that tells me that the Cowboys are explosive too. Not only can they be explosive when they have everything going, they have an explosive offense. And a lot of these games, if you look at the amount of sacks they have, they're having 5 or more sacks, 4 or more sacks a game. So they're getting to the quarterback too. 2 losses that they had that they lost their first game. I believe they played against the Bucks. They lost 19-3, and most recently they lost to the Packers, which they lost 31-28. So I mean, it's really too early to crown the Cowboys Super Bowl champs. It all depends on what team shows up. If the team that beat the Vikings shows up, they can beat anybody in the league. The team that beat the Bears shows up, they can beat anybody in the league. If the team that shows up that lost to the Packers or the Bucks shows up, be a typical end of the playoffs lot. They'll lose in the playoffs. So it all depends on what Cowboys team show up. You don't want to crown them champions already. They're not the Super Bowl champs. They're not the favorite to win the Super Bowl right now. They are a contender. They should be considered when they put it all together. When they put the running game, the passing game, and their defense is playing good, they're going to be hard to beat. But it's too early right now to say if the Cowboys are a Super Bowl, the number 1 favorite coming out of the NFC to get to the Super Bowl. So let me know what you guys have to say. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and message. Peace.